The 4-3-3 third variation is one of the most underrated formations in FC25. So today I'm going to be showing you guys the best 4-3-3 third variation custom tactics to help you guys counter the meta formations. Let's get into it. If you do try out these tactics, guys, and they do help you out, please be sure to leave a like rating on the video down below. It really goes a long way and helps me out. In return, as always, here is the tactics code on screen down below. Getting into the custom tactics, starting with the build-up style, we are running short passing. There's something about short passing with any 4-3-3 variant I really like. I think it generally pulls the wingers into the build-up play a little bit more, and it just enables you to really exploit all of the triangles a 4-3-3 offers. In terms of the defensive approach, I personally run the high line, but running a balanced line is absolutely fine as well. This game is still glitched, where when you manually adjust it, it doesn't actually make a difference, so all that matters is what it actually says at the top, whether it's deep, balanced, high, or aggressive. So go with balanced or high, whatever you prefer, but with this one, I think high is a little bit more effective. In terms of the team shape, it's this 4-3-3 defense shape. Now, because we're running our centre mid on box-to-box, they will also tuck in between our two central defensive midfielders, so you almost get like this defensive line of three as well, so that centre mid almost drops in like a third DM, so it's actually extremely strong on the defence, this one. However, when we're on the attack, as you can see, we get this really sort of dynamic shape. Now, because we've got the deep line playmaker on our central defensive midfielder here, they sit particularly deep, and that enables when you're with this wing back, you're able to actually drop the ball back to your DM, play it to your centre mid, and then feed it back out towards your wing back, and then you get into a 2-on-1 scenario with your opponent's full back. So it's really good for getting 2-on-1 scenarios, and really good at actually allowing you to get in those scenarios because of that natural triangle that we've created there with this shape. Rest assured, with this one, I know it looks like the front three are really separated, but you've got to remember, on the ball, that centre mid's pushing forward, the wing back's pushing forward, and you can always manually trigger other players forward as well. So in attack, they're not going to be as isolated as it looks on screen, because generally we're going to be triggering our wing back into the play, and then our centre mid is going to be pushing forward as well. Getting into the player role, starting with a striker, they're on advanced forward attack, just so they're occupying the two centre backs, making threatening runs through the middle. If you want a little bit more help with the build-up play, particularly with the wingers, you can switch this to complete. Our right winger and left winger are both on inside forward, just because it works really well on this game, and I've got the focus on roaming. Now, the reason I like roaming is they seem to always exploit where the gaps are, opposed to making the same generic runs. Very similar to what I did in my 4-3-3 second variation video, if you haven't seen that one already. Works really well, and this formation is absolutely no exception. In terms of our centre mid, they're on box to box. I know a lot of people would probably naturally throw on playmaker, because on the screen graphic it makes it look like they kind of push up to the position you'd want them to, but honestly, with box to box, they get very involved at both ends of the pitch. It almost is like having two players in one. It's like you get an extra person back, but an extra person forward. So you kind of have that 12th man with this instruction. It works really well. So box to box, I actually think, is the best option here. In terms of our two central defensive midfielders, we've got holding defender on our bigger central defensive midfielder, and then on our more ball-playing central defensive midfielder, I've got deep-lying playmaker to create that triangle between our left back and centre mid, which I mentioned earlier. As just alluded to, the left back is on wing back balance, so they are pushing forward, but not too immediately forward, enough for us to actually utilise them with that short passing build-up style to play those triangles and get involved and isolate the opponent's fullback. For the right back, I've got fullback balanced. You honestly could run defend if you feel like you're really weak at the back, but when you've got two central defensive midfielders who aren't committing forward, I think you can afford to switch that to balanced to bring the right back into play if you want to, but honestly, if you really don't want to do that, by all means switch this to defend. Both of the centre-backs are on defender-defend. We're not doing anything in particular with them. And then my goalkeeper, again, like the line depth, it's all personal preference on this one, but I personally opt for sweeper-keeper balance. Now, as we get into some of the gameplay, what you will notice is, despite it being on the short passing build-up style, which I think a lot of people associate with a slower style of play, you'll notice the way we've got the inside-forward roaming on the wingers mixed with the advanced forward at the striker. You can actually play really direct with these. They make really good runs, and they just exploit the spaces, particularly against fullbacks. This is really good against the 4-4-1-1s and the 4-4-2s that a lot of people are running because they're trying to replicate what pros are using. Against a 5-back, you've really got to utilise that overlapping wing-back, maybe even triggering your right-back into play as well, just to create the overloads against a bigger defence. But in terms of those 4-back meta formations, this one runs right because they're exploiting the gaps in between the defenders so well, whilst also creating overloads, while also having a defensive back four with 2 central defensive midfielders and a centre mid that drops in between them as well. It's a really, really tough shape to break down because if you think about your back four, you've basically got a centre mid in between each of the gaps in between those defenders. So there's very, very little pockets of space for the opponent to actually exploit when possession does turn over. So even though 4-3-3 isn't associated with being a defensively strong formation, with the way we formatted this, it really, really is strong on the defense. If you're not a good defender and you want to use a 4-3-3 variant, this is the one I recommend. Or the 4-2-1-3, because that is effectively the same shape with the centre mid pushed a little bit further up. But this one still lends to a slightly more defensively strong shape because of how we can format that centre mid, which we can't do with a cam. Overall, this is all about exploiting the triangles that we've made with the way we formatted it, utilising that deep line playmaker and wing back at the left back position to get overloads on that left hand side to isolate the opponent's fullback. And the main thing for me in terms of the takeaway I got from formatting these tactics is, despite it being on short passing, don't be afraid to play a direct style, because this formation, with the way the front three are formatted, actually serves a direct style really, really nicely. That is everything from me today, guys. If you do give the tactics a try, let me know how you got on with them down below. And if you do want to check out my other custom tactics that are on the channel, that is also linked in the description down below. But as always, guys, if you did make it this far in the video, I really appreciate your time. If you did enjoy it, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and turn your bell on. Take care, guys.